I'm talking about like why kind of free to play and microtransactions grew.
Oh, okay, okay. I completely lost track of where we were.
We were just kind of talking about the summary, and I was just kind of riffing on things. So.
Right, right. And there you go, rambling again. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Grandpa got on a tangent again. God damn it.
Okay, let me I'm gonna just reset things here.
Sure.
Okay. CP made a series of bad decisions and responded arrogantly to the players' feedback. Players dropped subs and shot the monument until CCP summoned the CSM and changed course. I mean, if it worked to get the players' point across, good for them.
I think like people are being a little overall optimistic about how much this changed things, because like the flip side of that, of course, is that CCP is no longer got bought recently, I think, or whatnot. They've made a lot of kind of other missteps. And and the other thing to kind of consider is that it could be like them not being able to sell $70 monocles hurt the company in the long term. People might have been upset about that, or may think that they weren't CCP wasn't treating the company with respect, or the players with respect. But at the end of the day, companies need to make money, and so how they make money. And I'm not saying giving a blanket statement that free to play models are all good, or every microtransaction is legitimate and blessed and whatnot. But I think people do tend to kind of react overly poorly to it. It reminds me of the Dilbert cartoon where the pointy hair boss comes in, and Dilbert and Wally are sitting there, and the pointy hair boss is like, "We're going to give the customers exactly what they want." And I think as Wally speaks up and says, "Well, the customers want better products for free." Like this is kind of like the kind of the innate conflict in our society, where people want things for cheap, but business want to make money, so you kind of have to find some way in the middle. And people will tend to kind of, especially gamers, will tend to get a lot very aggressive if they think that things are getting worse. If they feel like their good deal is being threatened, because as a lot of people point out during the heyday of the MMO, like a $10 subscription per month was an amazing deal for the amount of entertainment you got. And then to be fair, like the really big successful games were making a ton of money off of that. Like World of Warcraft, made $1 billion a year, or using the subscription, primarily using the subscription-based model. So, it's not to say that the companies weren't making enough money, but you start looking at like a lot of smaller games, a lot of more independent games, and how tough those were. How tough it was to support those types of games on a subscription model.
Because
I find it very...
not all games fit a subscription model, like Warframe, for example. Like this game was very much designed with the free-to-play model.
Yes, but like we said, I think you can make a hybrid model of it pretty easily. And I mean they could probably do a subscription-based model. This has kind of become but this kind of ties into our topic right now. Like, why did free to play grow? And like one of the big reasons was that because it got more people to try out a game.
Mm-hmm.
It got more like free is like for a while there, like the big thing was free, and like there's a book talking about like how free is one of the most powerful words, because it just kind of bypasses a lot of like logical. It often kind of bypasses a lot of logical thinking for people. They would see something's free. I've got to go. I can just go try it out.
R/entitled parents.
Right. Well, yeah. That as well.
I've been checking out that Reddit so much lately. It is ridiculous.
Right. But yeah, but if you look at MMO, subscription-based MMOs in context, online games used to be a per minute or per hour charge. People would literally rack up bills of hundreds or thousands of dollars per per month, because they were playing all the time, and essentially it was the change, in internet subscriptions from hourly to monthly that basically encouraged games to do the same.
Right.
Meridian was one of the first games to do that. It's kind of one of its claims to fame is that it was the first monthly subscription that kind of really set the rest of them.
Oh, so it's your fault? No, I'm kidding.
Well, I wasn't working on it at the time, and B, when I was working at 3DO, I had absolutely no control over the business model. So,
I joke.
oh, it's a joke. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like so yeah. Free to play is kind of is essentially kind of trying to this works better for especially a lot of smaller games. Because the problem you run into with a subscription-based game when you start talking about different sized games is that in player psychology, and I know this from talking to a ton of players that played and didn't play Meridian 59 when I was running it.
Mm-hmm.
The players see no matter how much money you're spending, like they see $10 about the same price as $15.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means essentially, when I was running Meridian 59, I was directly competing with World of Warcraft in the minds of people.
Right.
Even if our subscription was only 2/3 the price. So in their minds is about the same price, and then you look at World of Warcraft and you look at Meridian 59 and graphics and and all that stuff. For most gamers who have kind of are raised by companies to kind of expect that type of a shinier, newer, more modern looking game, they thought World of Warcraft is the better value. And then you look at like how many people were developing content for World of Warcraft versus how many people were developing content for Meridian 59. Yeah, I mean, like World of Warcraft was just the better deal. I could not compete with them on a raw subscription base. The only people that basically were playing Meridian were essentially, were basically three groups of people. One, people kind of bound by nostalgia. Two was friends of those people, and three was people where the gameplay was exactly precisely what they wanted. But even in that case, like a lot of people didn't play the game because I want a hardcore PvP game with consequences and epic wars and whatnot, but I want it to also be shiny and new and pretty and
Right. Now they go to Arc.
right. Well, I mean, and a lot of the PvP games have there have been very few PvP MMOs that have done very well at all, but we have a lot of PvP other types of games, MOBAs and survival games. Survival games and whatnot that have done well. But yeah, so and if I could have, I kind of wanted to, but I was always, the big problem you run into is kind of like the potential of alienating the audience you have. Is I really wanted to do a free to play model for Meridian 59,
which they have now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's completely free to play. Actually, I just made an account like the last month or so.
Right. Well, it's free. It's not free to. It's not a free to play model, not F2P. I don't think there's any microtransactions in it. It's just purely free because people are running the servers out of their own pockets. They're super cheap to run and and so but I would have liked to have done like a free to play model with Meridian. Because getting people in the door was the hard part, and then because and a lot of people just kind of like churn through it. The disadvantage of the free to play model though is that people have no investment. Overall you get more people playing, but when you got people into a subscription based game, they bought a box, they had to enter credit card information to verify their age, type thing. They had investment in it. But if you're free to play, you download a game and if it doesn't grab you within the first pretty low threshold of time, like first couple of minutes usually, people are probably gonna ditch it.
Yeah. That I can see that. Like when I first heard the Old Republic, um, like the game just grabbed me instantly. I was just like, oh my
Mm.
god, this is a Star Wars game. I love this.
Right.
And you know, you don't start out with your lightsaber because of course I started out as a Jedi, and
Mm.
you get the glow stick and I'm like, okay, I gotta get my lightsaber. I gotta get my lightsaber. I gotta get my lightsaber.
Right. Right.
Which you get at like level 10 or whatever when you complete the starter zone, the starter
Right.
planet, and then you get the lightsaber and you're like, okay, I'm invested. I love this. And
Right.
then you find shitty people that ruin your experience, and then a year and a half later you go, oh yeah, I hate this game now.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of one of the other interesting aspects of it is that you know, for a subscription-based game, a lot of what a lot of what the developers talked about, was, you know, not creating exit points, not creating pressure points, which ironically is kind of exactly the opposite of what you do for what free-to-play developers do, is they'll create pressure points to kind of encourage you to either, like, you know, you got to power through it, or you got to spend money in order to get through it.
Right.
But, like, you know, for subscription-based games, like, we try to avoid that because we didn't want to upset somebody to the point where they were going to, you know, cancel the subscription. Because, like, you know, a lot of times, you know, people, especially when people get busy, it's like, oh well, I'll keep on paying for it because it's easier to. Maybe I'll get time this month. But
Right.
we joke like the perfect subscriber, you know, was the person that paid subscription and then never logged on to consume resources.
Free money.
Right, basically. Well, I mean, and it's, you know, of course, you know, like, you know, if everybody does that, then, you know, you're going to lose some people who actually want to play on and play the game, you know, log on and play the game, but, you know, if nobody's playing, well, they're going to lose interest. But I think that, you know, again, you know, it was kind of like, you know, getting people to, you know, in the door was the hard part for a long time. And I think the other thing that we looked at is that really helped free to play was basically digital distribution. Like the rise of Steam and other games like that, or even just, you know, being able to download a game off the internet. In the oldie bad days when, you know, we were on dial-up and, you know, like downloading a game was, you know, set your computer overnight, go to work, and maybe by the next evening you're going to, you know, the game, you know, whatever you're trying to download will be downloaded.
Right. Right.
You know, that was a much harder sell for people to say, oh no, try it, you know, download this game, try it for free. Whereas the alternative was, oh hey, go to the store and, you know, pick up a CD with and then install the files on your computer. Once we started getting more broadband access, and we had distribution platforms, free to play became a lot more viable because now it's like, oh, this thing is like, you know, 5 gigabytes, whatever.
Right. Right.
You know,
Download
okay, sure,
in 2
you know,
seconds.
right. Download it, you know, go to the bathroom, make a sandwich, come back. It's, you know, it's probably, you know, downloaded for a lot of people. And so, you know, that, I think that kind of really made it a lot easier to do the free-to-play model when you didn't have to worry about physical distribution of media in order for people to actually just be able to play the game.
Yeah, I actually had that moment of amazement a couple years ago because, like, my first one of my first PC games was Diablo 2. And I remember explicitly just sitting at the computer watching it install because I had nothing better to do with myself. And it took like 45 minutes to install. Because I was on an old, just stock Dell.
Right.
And then a couple years back, I just had, you know, this itch to, you know, play Diablo 2. And I downloaded the files off from the Blizzard site because I couldn't find my discs at the time, and that took, I don't know, the Blizzard downloader is always super slow for me, even though I have really good internet. It's weird. So that took forever, but the installation took like 5 seconds.
Right.
Because of processor speed and hard drive speed increases. I'm just like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Right. Exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, it just became a lot easier to handle a lot of these things. So, you know, we just had, you know, that became just kind of a smarter way to do it. And so I think that, you know, like I was saying earlier, with the microtransaction model, it took a little while for us to kind of developers to kind of figure out how to do like a item purchase model. Because subscriptions were pretty easy to do. I mean, you have monthly payments for a lot of things. Cable, you pay your phone monthly, cell phone, data usage plans, things like that. So the idea of paying per month for something was not an alien concept. It was, and you could rely on a lot of other payment processing places. But then so the problem you run into then was with free-to-play models, as developers, you had to kind of do a lot more. You had to basically do a lot more work in order to be able to sell items in your game.
Right. And
yeah, let's go.
Jeez.
That's fine. I just didn't want to speak over you. So
no, you're fine. Keep going.
Yeah, and so I think that so like part of the kind of the hesitance to transfer over, from subscription to free to play was kind of getting over that, and like free to play kind of started happening about the same time we started getting mobile transactions. And mobile games were kind of pioneering a lot of the free to play stuff after Korean MMOs. And so, as you got more, there was a ton of payment processing places that were doing, selling, they were trying to sell kind of generic game cards or generic game currency. The idea that, games was, sign up for them and then you'd buy whatever, brand X coins and then be able to go to any game that supported brand X coins and buy stuff within it.
Would this be a time to talk about Perfect World International?
Who am I to deny you again? Go ahead.
So I just hate Perfect. No, it's Perfect World Entertainment International is the game. Perfect World. I hate this company so much. It is. I don't usually take a strong stance against particular game companies. They might make decisions I don't agree with, EA, but I usually go, oh well, that's expected. Perfect World Entertainment is just the worst. They literally Perfect World International, their franchise making game, was one of the most pay-to-win games on the market when I was playing it. Literally, hey, you want to upgrade this item? Too bad. But there's so many words, not enough time.
Keep going. So why don't you describe the business model in general terms so other people can understand? Because I haven't played any Perfect Worlds game, so you have the experience here. So what describe the business model?
So the game of theirs that I have the most experience with is Forsaken World. And it is the most free-to-play model game you can it is all the way on the left side of the spectrum of free-to-play. So
no cost to buy, there's no subscription, it's purely in-game transactions.
And they do have a currency conversion where you can convert in-game gold into diamonds or whatever their premium currency was, but the conversion rate is so terrible that in order to get $5 of currency would take you a month to grind out in gold.
Right.
So So in theory, like if it were following the $15 monthly subscription model, it would take you 3 months of grinding to pay for 1 month,
Right.
which is not really a fair conversion.
Well, I mean, well, describe the model, then we can pass judgment on it after.
So one of the key purchase items is what you would expect, which is item upgrade materials.
Mm.
So say you get a game item, you get a piece of gear out of a dungeon. It'll have upgrade tiers available to it to improve it. With increased stats, and then once you get like the highest tier, you get set bonuses off of it, which would be increases particular abilities, properties or whatever. But it had the ability to break on upgrade.
Right.
And if it broke, then you'd have to get repair material to fix it, to unbreak it, and then try to upgrade it again.
Right.
I mean, in theory, I'm not opposed to that model, but all of those materials are cash shop only.
Right.
So you have to spend money on these things, and nothing was guaranteed. The upgrades were not guaranteed because you could break it.
Right.
Which then would require you to buy more money to fix it to try to upgrade it again. So it was a constant war of RNG probabilities, and that's my biggest issue. And that's what turns it into pay to win. Because if you try to go into PvP of any kind, you're gonna run into I forget what the exact terms are. I call them twinks. A twink is just someone who is at the top of their bracket.
Right.
Who will just absolutely destroy you because the gear upgrades make such of a large difference.
Right.
And that's my biggest issue with that model. And I think Perfect World International, I think it came out of that game.
Well, that's a pretty, like, the whole, like, upgrade, take weapons, combine them to upgrade with a random chance for it to break and whatnot. That was pretty common system in the Korean games.
Right.
Having to buy the materials off the cash shop was not quite so common, but still common enough. So, yeah, I mean, so I don't know like who started doing that type first. It could have been Perfect World. So I mean, again, like not really having played the game, just from your description, like I think my issue with it as a designer and as a player is that like I don't like that type of design. Like there's two problems with the design. I don't like that type of design, even though it's very common. Like I said, it's very common in Korean games. Like I'm not a big fan of get stuff together, push button, random chance for it to succeed or fail, and then if it fails, well, you suck. Suck it up, buy a helmet. The other thing is that like having a heavy gear-based PvP system is it basically it also causes problems because exactly what we said. If people can obtain upgrades easier, the people who can obtain upgrades easier are going to have an advantage. And that's essentially that's never going to be fair unless everybody has an equal chance to get an upgrade. So for example, in Meridian 59, equipment was pretty much meaningless. You needed a sword to swing a sword at someone, but like most swords were basically the same as any other sword of that type.
Right.
There were a couple special swords that people farmed for and got lucky for and fought over. But that was basically for the most part your gear played a relatively minor part, and the special items you could find were pretty powerful, but it wasn't like well, give up if you can't find the item.
And
I think
sorry, go ahead.
And I think that like the business model exacerbates the design flaws, I think. You know, like you know, even if even if you didn't have to buy cash up stuff to increase your weapons, even for just a random time, and and people basically, it was just pure invest time into it in order to upgrade it. You're still going to have a bit of unfairness where some people that have a lot of time to kill, to invest, to pour into something, are going to be better.
Right. And the like I remember one of my friend, and the price of the upgrade materials was dependent on the level of the gear.
Right.
So once you're upgrading like raid level gear, it's pretty freaking expensive. I know a friend who spent like $150 total over the course of a couple months just trying to upgrade like a chess piece.
Right.
And like hadn't even gotten to the pants or the shoes or anything, and they're already $100 into this gear.
Right.
And it's just that it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous amount of money to invest.
I mean, the thing is, I think the other problem you run into is it's kind of a concept, like like let's talk about something else besides games for now. Let's talk about cars.
Mm-hmm.
Is $1 million an excessive amount of money to spend on a car? For most of us, yes.
Yes.
Are there cars that cost $1 million to buy? Yes.
Right.
And so like but you don't see people railing against like, oh, how dare there be a car worth that has a price tag of $1 million. It's a tricky interplay because obviously your friend that paid $150, hopefully he or she could afford that. They weren't like taking money intended for baby formula to play the game. But it's one of those things, like in an ideal world, if somebody doesn't like that, well, they stop playing the game, they find something else to play.
Right.
The reality, of course, is that like a lot of times people will get very invested in the game, and I mean, this is kind of a part of the intention. Is that like the developers want people to get very invested in the game, and so then when it's like, okay, well, we want you to spend $100 in order to do what you want to do, it's like, well, I guess it's worth it.
Where they kind of end up getting kind of trapped into things.
I mean, you can say trapped, but I mean, like still at the end of the day, it was their choice to spend $150.
Right.
If they didn't want to do that, they could have quit playing the game. And went and played some other subscription-based game that suited their taste better. Went and played almost a year of a subscription-based game for the amount of money they spent trying to upgrade that item. I think that and I think that like one of the problems that you run into is like I like the idea of like it's something that we kind of played around with a bit. EverQuest did this with some special servers whereas it was like $50 a month to play these servers. We kind of premium options for game services.
Okay.
So the idea specifically for EverQuest was that you'd get GMs that would go and help spawn things. Like you basically got like much enhanced customer service, where the customer service was allowed to do a lot more things than they were allowed to do on the normal servers.
Okay.
The idea of
kind of got like the VIP treatment.
Basically, yeah, exactly. That was the idea. Like, these are the VIP servers. The plebs went and paid $9.89 a month for to play on the normal servers. You were paying $40 or $50, I forget exactly how much it was, per month to go play on the VIP servers. You got essentially personalized attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I think like assuming the game is good enough, having it so that people would who can want to pay $150 a month for over 3 months or whatever, like what you're saying your friend did, that should be an option if they're enjoying the game enough.
Right.
And that's one of the benefits from a developer's point of view of the free to play model. And kind of talking about why the business model grow is because when you're talking about a pure subscription game, everybody's paying the same for a subscription.
Right.
If there's some benefit to playing multiple accounts, maybe a company would get more money out of a single person if they bought multiple accounts. But people who multi-box are kind of few and far in between. and whereas with the free to play model, when you had it so that like essentially it's open ended how much money that people want to decide to pay into your game, you weren't necessarily just limited to you weren't necessarily just limited to whatever the subscription amount was. You had the concept of whales where like some people would spend like thousands, tens of thousands, potentially even hundreds of thousands. I've heard like some games, to play these games, and to have it, the idea being that this is what their entertainment is. They've decided that they have the entertainment budget, they can expend a lot of more money. But if that same person that would spend like $10,000 on a free to play game went and played Blizzard, went and played World of Warcraft, before the item shop, they would only be spending $50 a month. And from a business point of view, Blizzard would be leaving money. What they say, in a lot of business areas, Blizzard would be leaving money on the table.
Right. Yeah, I lost my thought.
Sorry.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Like sometimes I'll play a game and I'll get it like super cheap, like
right.
15 I got for like $30, and I feel bad. I feel like I actually ripped off Square Enix.
Right.
And I genuinely, sometimes when I'm playing, I'm just like, I wish I could give them more money for this game.
Right.
Because well, not anymore because they canceled all the DLC, and I'm like, well, if I gave them more money, then they could have.
They could have maybe found another director to finish the DLC. Right. Right. Again, it kind of comes down to that. Game companies are businesses, and as a game developer, I want people to enjoy themselves, but like I want to keep my business going. I want to pay rent. I want to have food. I want to make sure my employees are paid. And so ultimately it comes down to making sure that I do things that make me enough money to keep things going.
Right.
And a free to play model, because and going back to what we were talking about before with smaller games having trouble with a subscription model. Like free to play model is great because if you find someone who's a big fan of your indie game and they're willing to pour in hundreds or thousands of dollars a month, well you've got one person who's worth a dozen or so subscribers just on their own. And so if you get a bunch of those people, you can basically if your game has an audience of 1,000 people but they're willing to pay a lot more money, well then then you can potentially compete with Blizzard and World of Warcraft. Like I said, like when I was running Meridian 59, people kind of saw the amount of money they paid for Meridian 59 to be about the same amount of money they pay for Blizzard for World of Warcraft. But if the game is free to play for, then once people kind of get invested in the game and then they want to pay more, well that's a better business model for especially for the smaller people.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about the pros and cons of the different microtransaction models next. But
right.